declaration of a state of emergency. He had declared a state of emergency, meaning that Gazette had been published. And immediately after the publication, he ought to have relayed it to the National Assembly for its action within 48 hours, if it is in session. So that's the problem I'm having.
So now the challenge is that gap. I mean, where did something go wrong? Because if the Senate are talking, the National Assembly are talking about possibly considering it this week,
yes,
it means
no, but the session considering it this week is unconstitutional.
What if they didn't receive it? If it was not relayed to them?
Then the state of emergency would not have any effect as far as law is concerned. It will not have any effect. Then they may probably have to do it again.
But there's this argument that what the president has done now is just an exercise of his constitutional rights.
Yes, of course.
As the commander-in-chief of the armed forces.
Yes,
so he has not broken any law.
No, he has not broken any law.
That's assuming that publication has not been done.
No, if the publication had not been done, he has broken the law. He has breached the Constitution. If he had not published the official Gazette. Because without the publication of the official Gazette, he could never have declared a state of emergency.
But are you saying without the publication of the Gazette, the president cannot move troops to a region to protect the integrity of the nation?
No, that's a different question. It's a different question. Because if you ask me the nature of the state of emergency, the nature of the state of emergency is quaint. I find it very difficult to understand it. Because if you look at section 218 of the Constitution, 217 to 218, now it tells you all the fulsome powers which the president has to deploy troops. He is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federation of Nigeria. He could move troops. So that throws up a number of questions. What manner of a state of emergency? I support this state of emergency to start with. Now, but what manner of a state of emergency is this one? Without this state of emergency, could the president not have done what he has just done? Of course, yes. You answer that question in the affirmative. He could have done it. I mean, what is the substance of this state of emergency? It is just that, the Chief of Defense Staff has been called upon to deploy troops, intensify the deployment of troops to the affected states of Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa, all of which he could have done without a state of emergency anyway. So what is the substance of this state of emergency which precludes the suspension of the political class?
It does?
It does, because the governor is there. All the political appointees remain in office. So you wonder.
Is there anything wrong with that?
Oh, yes.
Because some of your colleagues have also argued that that's the way to go.
No, that's not the way to go. They have the right to say what they have said. And I am saying that's not the way to go. This is not a state of emergency properly so called. What are we looking at? What are the precedents? Now, if you argue that it's democratic to leave the governor there, what are you looking at? In May, on May 18, 1962, Tafawa Balewa declared a state of emergency in the West, which you all know. Now, and he did that under the provisions of the powers conferred upon him by the Emergency Powers Act of the previous year, of 1961. Now, I remember that the Patriots, in 2004, when Chief Obasanjo declared the state of emergency in Plateau State, argued that, that thing was not, that Emergency Powers Act was not comprehended by the laws of the Federation of Nigeria in 1990. And for that reason, it cannot be said to be one of the existing laws under the provisions of Section 315 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Now, but that's not correct, because if you look at Section 315, subsection 1, it tells you that all existing laws, it did not say they remain existing laws only when they are part of the 1990 laws. All existing laws shall have full force of law as if they were made by the present National Assembly. So the Emergency Powers Act of 1961 gave Tafawa Balewa the power to sack the government of Akintola and Adegbero at that time, cleared all the political appointees, and made Dr. Moses Adekoye Jomajekodumi the administrator of that region. Now, we had another example in 2004 in Plateau State. We had another example, in Ekiti State. So what is it? What's the problem now?
What if the president was advised that the 1999 Constitution does not envisage a situation where the state of emergency will remove the governors?
And do you know what? You have to know what is a state of emergency. A state of emergency is a dire necessity. It's something, a complication of contingencies. So many things happening you didn't know, and things that are likely to cripple this nation, things that are likely to, foment problems for either the state or the region or any part of this federation. So when you talk of emergency is emergency. It suspends everything, including constitutional rights, everything. That's the meaning of emergency. All freedoms, all constitutional rights guaranteed by the Constitution, enshrined in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, they are all suspended during any emergency of this nature. I mean, don't forget that even the president himself said, what Boko Haramites are doing constitutes a declaration of war against this country. So when there is a situation of war, such as we have in the Northeast, now any chronic disease deserves a very tough treatment. Now, so when you leave the political appointees, the governors, some of whom may have aided and abetted the rebellion, the insurgency in the Northeast, you leave them there, then you are saying you don't want to succeed. You don't want this emergency.
The argument is that because if you look at the Constitution, there's no explicit section where it says you should remove those democratic structures. And in any case, you also discover that, there's a section here that says the governor of a state can also advise the federal government to declare a state of emergency in his state. So that doesn't necessarily mean I'm asking the federal government to take me out of office.
Yes, well, it could mean that too. If it's a section of the state, government, federal government, please assist me. Declare a state of emergency like Obama would declare a state of emergency in certain parts of. But those are not political states of emergency. This one is so political. That one, maybe there are some natural disasters and so on. So help me, you declare a state of emergency. That's different from this one. An emergency occasioned by the fact that this country may be torn apart. There is a clear and present danger of the actual breakdown. Or in fact, there is already an actual breakdown of law and order and security. Now, this type of emergency is not even the one that the governor in subsection 4 of section 305 is saying, that the federal government will wait for the governor to. But even if you read that subsection 4 very well, you will discover that if the governor is not asking the federal government to come to his assistance within a reasonable time, within a reasonable period, the federal government can go there and declare a state of emergency. And if you declare a state of emergency like this, it only shows that this is what the state government or the state governments have not been able to do. Now,
that is why Section 5 is saying that, the president shall not issue a proclamation of a state of emergency in any case to which the provisions of subsection 4 of this section apply, unless the governor of the state fails within a reasonable time to make a request to the president to issue such proclamation.
If the governor feels that, I'm threatened, please, federal government, help me, the federal government comes in. But if everybody has been looking at what is happening in that state, and if the governor is not asking the federal government to come to his assistance, and everything is breaking down, the federal government can then, if after a reasonable time that governor has not made a request, the federal government goes there.
Just like